Science is now telling us we can improve the brain by focusing on our mind-altering microbiome. We'll explore this communication between our mind and gut and what part it plays in our well-being. There's now strong scientific evidence that our gut affects our memory, mood, and behavior, all promising a better understanding of many neurological diseases from autism to Alzheimer's. There's an old saying, "It's all in the mind," is changing to "it's all in the gut."
There's a huge link now between the gut and the brain and the way we interact. It's what we call the gut-brain axis, and when we talk about the gut-brain axis, I think it's important to clarify what do we mean. We mean that there are communication pathways between our gut and our brain, and it works both ways. Now, science in this area is in its early infancy, okay? We're learning more all the time, but so far we know that one route that we can exchange information, both from our brain to our gut, but also back from our gut to our brain, is the vagus nerve. One of the longest nerves in the body. It winds its way down from the brain stem, all the way down to our gut. And just as if you can feel nervous because you're under some emotional stress, that can send a message down to your gut, and you can start to have the urge to go to the toilet. We intuitively know that that kind of fear, that sort of emotional stress can impact our guts. We now know that if our gut is being nourished appropriately, we can send the right message back out to our brain saying, hey, I'm not under attack. I'm not in danger. Everything's okay. When you feed your gut with the right foods, okay, when you feed those gut bugs with the right foods, okay, they make things called short-chain fatty acids. A prime example is something called butyrate. And we now know that butyrate can go to the vagus nerve, and it's a little bit like Morse code, okay? It doesn't go up the vagus nerve to your brain. It almost like just sends a signal at the bottom, and the signal changes in your brain. It's incredible. It's a bit like being downstairs in your house and pressing a light switch and a flash goes on up in your brain. It's absolutely incredible. But that butyrate can also go around the body into through your bloodstream up to your brain. It can also go in the lymphatic system and end up in your brain. So we're learning all the time. So in real life, when I see patients, and I see many patients with anxiety, I see many patients with mental health problems, I know that when I start giving them a very colorful diet, I take out the foods that are harming them, I put in the foods that frankly the gut bugs need. And what are these foods? These are really, it's basically fruit and vegetables that are colorful, right? This is fiber. Plant-based fiber is what nourishes our gut microbiome. And I see that when I do that many times, people's anxiety goes down, their mood goes up.
Do you have any examples of jumping in to resolve gut microbiome issues with behavioral issues, whether in children or even adults?
I had someone in clinic 2 weeks ago, a 12-year-old girl who's been struggling for years. She's a bit of a problem child at school. That's what the teachers think. Parents come in and say, look, can you do anything? Because, we've tried everything. And you look at the diets and it's horrific. It's a typical diet that a child or a teenager in the West would be consuming. And it's amazing that when you start, it's the same approach. What are they consuming that is harming the gut? What are they not consuming that would be beneficial? Once you start altering that, the behavior starts to improve. And I have had some kids with behavioral problems that when we actually calm things down in their gut, and again, sometimes I'm not measuring, I'm not doing a stool test to look at their gut bugs, so I'm making a clinical observation. I can't prove to you that that's the gut microbiome, but I can look at the science and I know that the diet is changing the gut microbiome, and I know that when that happens, positive messages are being sent up to the brain. So I absolutely feel that that is the reason why these kids, why these adults are getting an improvement. Now, sometimes it's not enough, so you have to do other things as well. But my clinical observations by doing this fits with some very current modern science. In February 2017, we had one of the most significant trials of recent times in relation to this, which is called the SMILES trial. It was done in Australia. I think it was only 67 people. Okay, it's a small trial, but it was a randomized controlled trial. So that gold standard trial that we use as doctors when we assess the benefit of pharmaceutical drugs was being applied to a dietary intervention. So you had these patients with moderate to severe depression. They'd already been diagnosed, okay? They've got a mental health problem. They were already on treatment, some form of treatment, okay? We didn't change that treatment. One group was put on a modified Mediterranean diet. Okay, one group was not, and they had some social support. Okay, the modified Mediterranean diet consisted of all kinds of things, including, lots of omega-3 rich fatty fish, lots of colorful fruit and vegetables. There were also some whole grains in this diet. I think they were like the real when we talk about whole grains, a lot of the whole grains that people buy in the West are not really whole grains. They're very refined and processed. But, we don't need to necessarily go into the specifics. The point is they were put on a modified Mediterranean diet for 12 weeks. And there was a statistically significant remission rate in the group who went on the modified Mediterranean diet. Absolutely incredible. This was a randomized controlled trial. And I recently spoke to Professor John Crine, who's one of the lead world researchers in gut health and the brain out of Cork in Ireland. Absolutely incredible. And he's now working with that team to look at, are these benefits mediated through the microbiome? Absolutely incredible. Professor John Crine has done lots of research in this area. He's done a trial where people, I think it was people who've got, they were exposed to a stressful situation, very standard stressful situation that is considered in laboratory testing to impose high levels of stress on the body. And one group were given a specific bacterium in the form of a probiotic capsule. I think it was Bifidobacterium longum, 22, but certainly a specific type of probiotic bacteria. And the group who got it, their stress resilience improved. The amount that their stress hormones went up in response to the stressor was reduced simply by taking a probiotic capsule. Now, to take a balanced viewpoint here, some of the trials with certain probiotic capsules don't show that. So he's trying to figure out which ones do and which ones don't. And I think we also need to recognize that we are still early in the science on the gut microbiome. So we don't quite know yet which probiotics, which particular bacteria, are going to help in what conditions, okay? But what do I say? I say, generally speaking, we regard probiotics as do no harm. Ultimately, very few of us as doctors who are using them think that if we get the wrong one, we don't think we're going to do any harm. And I feel very comfortable with that. But we don't have to take a probiotic. The most powerful way to change our gut microbiome is by changing what we eat, okay? And there's no risk there. So we can look at the science and see what the science is telling us, that the gut microbiome is critical for many different conditions. And we also know that your diet is the simplest and quickest way to change that.